National Catholic Register. This is Register Radio, bringing light and clarity to the news and topics that affect your life.
One of the biggest political issues in the news as we head into the 2026 midterm elections is the housing shortage. This week on Register Radio, Register staff writer Jonah McKeown joins us to discuss how America's housing shortage is turning into a moral crisis. And then, Register Senior Contributor Edward Pentin is just back from Tanzania. We talked to him about the Mothers and Missionaries of the Holy Cross and their extraordinary foundress. Hello, I'm Matthew Bunson, Vice President and Editorial Director of EWTN News and host of Register Radio. My co-host, as always, Shannon Mullen, Editor-in-Chief of the National Catholic Register, is here in studio with me in D.C. How are you, Shannon?
Very well, Matthew.
How's
Good to
your
be with
summer?
you. It's going quick.
I think a lot of people are hoping it goes quickly.
Yeah.
Given the heat.
Today is absolutely gorgeous day, though, so no complaints.
Absolutely. Well, there are some complaints about the lack of affordable housing that's impacting everything from family formation to participation in parish life. I'm really glad that the Register was able to take a look at this question because poll after poll indicates that Americans generally are very dissatisfied with both parties in how they're responding to the affordability crisis, to the housing crisis. There don't seem to be a lot of answers, but as Jonah McKeown in his reporting has found, this really is something now of a moral crisis. And Jonah joins us to talk about his piece. Jonah, thanks so much for coming back on Register Radio.
Hi, it's great to be back.
So to take on a piece like this, you have been something of our resident expert in AI now for a long time. This is probably a change of pace, but kind of a grim one, isn't it?
It's a change of pace, but it's also it's a very personal issue for me as, I'm I'm part of one of these young families that I spoke to for the piece. And obviously housing is something that affects all of us as humans, but it's really kind of a particularly acute problem for, Catholics and people of all faiths who are wanting to, respond to the call to become parents and nurture the next generation. That it's very difficult in many places, particularly major cities, but in some ways everywhere, to find a decent home these days. And there's many reasons for that, and many of those I get into in my piece.
Yeah, Jonah, this is an economic story, but at the Register we always look for the Catholic angle. Sometimes it's very explicit, sometimes it's implied. What is the Catholic angle in this story?
Right. Well, so as Catholics, we prize the family as kind of the basic building block of society. It's kind of an image of God as a family, and so. As a society, we should be doing everything we can, ideally, to nurture families and give them the tools and the freedom to be able to, as we say, raise the next generation of people and the next generation of Catholics. And so housing comes into that as a huge piece, because there's actually been many studies showing that high cost of housing really kind of psychologically affects people, in the sense that it might be, harder to launch your life and kind of move out of your parents' basement, as it were. But also, even for married couples, it can be hard to feel as though you can kind of safely respond to God's call to, maybe have children or have more children when, you don't know what's around the bend in terms of, are we going to be able to have a home that's big enough? Are we going to be able to live close enough to the parents' work, to not have a crazy commute, that kind of thing? Like the kinds of practical things that really do put real pressure on families. And have real impacts in terms of, the fertility rate, but also, as you mentioned in the introduction, just being able to participate in parish life. Many of the people I spoke to for the piece kind of had to figure out housing solutions that involved, moving away from the parish community that they were a part of. And, one could say, like, well, find a new parish, but that's that's not always easy to do, and so it affects the church in many different ways. The housing crisis does.
Yeah, and you have a statistic here that's might be a surprise to a lot of people. You write that the lack of affordable options for families is particularly acute in major cities where large shares of renters and homeowners are spending more than 30% of their income on housing, leaving them little margin for other important things such as Catholic school tuition or parish tithing. So it's a family problem, it's a parish problem, but it's increasingly also a diocesan problem.
That's right. I mean, it's simple math in a way. If you're spending too much on simply where you live, which is obviously a hugely important part of any family's expenses, but there's a term in the financial industry called being rent burdened, where if you are over that 30% margin of spending 30% of your family's income on housing, it really does make other things incredibly difficult. I mean, we've reported at the Register, of course, that Catholic school tuition is not cheap. It's extremely important, but it's difficult for families when they're spending so much simply on a roof over their heads. What about Catholic school tuition? What about being generous with the church? I mean, obviously we're called to be generous with our money, but when there's not a lot left, it really squeezes people.
What is going on? We described it, I think, at the top as a housing shortage. Is there a shortage of housing, or is it just that it's so expensive? What are some things that make this housing crisis distinctive?
Right. There's a lot of interesting kind of financial and real estate dynamics that have gone into this. One of them is the fact that it is very difficult nowadays in many places and across the country to build new housing. And part of that is because of just simply, permitting, red tape, environmental concerns. And obviously, as Catholics, we should care about the environment. That is an important thing to care about. But, so many of the experts I spoke about how a lot of these environmental concerns have kind of compounded over the years, and it's kind of become just too much red tape to create, the kind of affordable housing that is needed. A lot of the permitting nowadays is for luxury housing and the kinds of things that most average families can't really afford. And there's kind of this theory that if you build a lot more luxury housing, then that will kind of free up more of the affordable options for families, but that hasn't really taken place. So that's a big factor, is that in just recent decades, not a lot of new housing has been built. And so the housing stock that is existing, like the houses that already exist, a lot of them are owned either by older homeowners, people who bought them many decades ago in many cases, or they're owned by homeowners who kind of snapped them up at a very, very low interest rate during the pandemic. And that's kind of led to a situation where, because interest rates have now risen since the pandemic, a lot of people are kind of feeling like, well, why would I move? Why would I let go of my house? It's my nest egg. I'm going to keep it while the interest rates are very low. And so it's actually led to a situation where new home sales are at the lowest they've been in 30 years. So it's really it's a big combination of factors, and the government has attempted to address this with this new bipartisan bill that I mentioned in the piece. But it's really the experts I spoke to really have emphasized to me that a lot of the changes, in terms of policy to fix the housing crisis, really need to be done at the local level, fixing zoning regulations and the other red tape that we mentioned before.
Yeah, Jonah, so the church does offer quite a bit of thought on this. We go to Catholic social teaching, and as you note in your piece, that the church affirms the right to private property, but it also teaches that this right is not absolute. And you mentioned the catechism. that the political authority has the right and duty to regulate the legitimate exercise of the right to ownership for the sake of the common good. But at the same time, as you cite in your piece, there perhaps have to be realistic expectations for Catholics.
Right. It's something to balance because, obviously throughout human history and in many other countries across the world today, there hasn't been as high a standard of living as many of us enjoy here in the United States. I mean, that's simply a fact. But at the same time, you do have to recognize that if we as Catholics are serious about wanting to nurture families, as we mentioned, and really see them flourish, when a country has a kind of a certain standard of living that's accepted as a high standard of living, it does seem as though we should be aiming for that, right? Aiming to provide that for families as much as is reasonable. And so, that's definitely something I touch on in the piece, is that, a lot of these Catholic families, and again, not to generalize all of them, but, they're not looking for a big mansion on a bunch of land. They just really, one family I spoke to in Philadelphia, they literally just want a 3-bedroom home. Which is not, there's a lot of variation there, obviously, in what a 3-bedroom home could be, but that's what they're looking for, and they really just have had a really, really hard time finding anything that is reasonable. And so, yes, expectations might have to be lowered, and many families already have, but again, as we say, as Catholics, we prize the family as the building block of society. And so I think we should be asking not that families should settle for less, but that perhaps maybe we can do more for them.
Yeah, Jonah, at the bottom of your piece and your tagline, you ask readers who want to talk to you about this issue to get in touch. And I hope they do. There's so many aspects to this, so many unanswered questions that we're interested in delving into at the Register. You live in the Midwest. I'm interested if there's any kind of a movement back to the center of the country because of these affordability issues, and also multi-generational housing arrangements. That at one point, generationally, that was kind of the norm, living with your parents or older parents. And so I'm really interested to know, to the extent how people are adapting to this really intractable problem. So I hope people do reach out and get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Agreed. Yes. If people want to follow the link and go to my story on the Register, they'll find my email address at the bottom, as you say. And there's just so many fascinating aspects to housing, again, because it's something that touches everybody in the world. And there are a lot of really interesting creative solutions being proposed and being done across the church, and Catholics are involved in that. So do please get in touch with me.
All right. Well, as always, thanks so much, Jonah. And your piece can be found at ncregister.com. Well, Jonah, thanks again, and look forward to having you on again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Well, you're listening to Register Radio here on EWTN Radio. Next up, Shannon Mullen and I talk with Edward Pentin about his journey to Tanzania and an extraordinary foundress of a community of women religious. Stay tuned to Register Radio.
Let's return to Register Radio on EWTN.
Welcome back. I'm Matthew Bunson with Shannon Mullen, Editor-in-Chief of the National Catholic Register. Well, Register Senior Contributor Edward Pentin returned recently from a trip to Tanzania, and he's written about a community of women religious. He's been tracking them for a number of years now. Most of us have never heard of the Mothers and Missionaries of the Holy Cross, and even less likely is that we are familiar with the foundress of the community, Mother Maria Stieren, who first came to Tanzania in 1959 as a Benedictine missionary sister. She died in 2008 at the age of 85 after what Edward refers to as a remarkable life in the service of the Lord. Edward joins us now. Welcome back to Register Radio, Edward.
Thank you, Matthew. Good to be with you there.
So what was it about this community that first caught your eye?
It really is the remarkable life, as you say, of Mother Maria Stieren. And I have a sort of vague, without going into too much detail, but a connection to her, because 30 years ago I taught in the same school that she taught in, or the same abbey, rather, in southern Tanzania when I was a volunteer. She wasn't there then, she'd already left, but and I never met her, unfortunately. But I do remember hearing about it then. And she lived from 1923 to 2008. And as you say, she was a Benedictine missionary sister who then received a call within a call to start up her own order, and which is now flourishing in the center of Tanzania. And what's interesting about that is that she decided to start the order because she felt impelled to do so because of the desecrations on the sacrilege, really, against the Eucharist that she was experiencing in the 1970s. And she was determined to do this. She received the call to do it and just followed the Lord where he guided her. And it's what makes it so remarkable is that there are also many similarities there with Mother Angelica, because she had such a strong faith and an absolute confidence in divine providence. And everything she did, she just relied on the Lord to guide her and provide her with whatever resources and funds she needed to fulfill the mission that he was calling her to. And it really is, I can't say, I can't really underestimate the amount of supernatural elements to this story, and how you see God's hand of divine providence guiding her through it to create this order. It really is quite something. It's an extraordinary story.
Yeah, I thought of Mother Angelica. Mother Maria had this attitude that, everything's paid for already.
Yes. Right.
Never mind if they had any money in their bank account. So that sounds very, very Mother Angelica-like, for sure. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Mothers and Missionaries? What does this order do in Africa, and how widely are they active?
Yes. Well, I think they number about 81 sisters now, and about 21 priests and 12 brothers. And what Mother Maria was called to do, really, was to go where there was most need, and where there was most need in Tanzania. And so she ended up in the Tanzanian desert, basically, where there was great need and there was no real services at all. And what she did was provide, first of all, healthcare. Then she provided, there was a time of famine when she arrived there. And so they were feeding thousands of people for 16 years, just trying to provide food for them, and just relying again on providence from generous donors in Germany, particularly, to help them with this. And then gradually it's expanded. Mother Maria's great hope was to create a major hospital, which she did in the desert there. And it's a very well guarded hospital where many patients come from all around for treatment. And then it expanded further. She founded orphanages and schools in the area. And then from there it expanded further to a mission in Brazil, which she founded partly because it enabled her to create the order, to make the order an order of pontifical right. And she had to do that through going through Brazil, but it also allowed her to create a mission there. And then she has an old people's home in Germany too, in Bavaria, where she's from. So it's expanded hugely in 50 years. Last week was the 50th anniversary of the founding of the order. So it is remarkable how much has been achieved in that short time.
Yeah, Edward, I have to ask you about the story that I know you reported on previously in the Register back in 2022. I'm probably going to mispronounce the name, and you'll correct me, I'm sure, but the Barabeg tribe.
Yes.
She had such a remarkable relationship with the whole tribe, despite the fact that they were considered absolutely fierce and terrifying members of this part of Tanzania.
Yes, I mean, this is an amazing story because she was totally fearless. As I say, she had great trust in the Lord. And one journey she had to go through this region, which was filled with this Barabeg tribe, which is like the Maasai tribe. They're very fierce, and a pagan tribe, of course. And she got quite sick on the journey and had to get out of the car and rest. And she was warned not to because of the tribe near her. But she was so fearless, and she kind of befriended them. She went back several times and got to know them. Each time she went, she would bring food and clothing for them. And they gradually became her friends. And through that, she managed to bring many to the faith. And I think not all of them, but I think the vast majority of the tribe now are now Catholic and Christian. So that's an amazing feat. And of course, that's what she was there for. She was a missionary sister. That was her training as a Benedictine, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and you recount the encounter she had with the chief of the tribe, where he asked Mother Maria, "Other people don't love us. Why do you love us?" And her response, I think, was pretty epic.
Yes. Well, I mean, the interesting thing was that they said, our ancestors told us that someone would come to tell us about God. And is that person you? And she said, yes, I believe it is. And so from then on, they were very enamored with her. And not only that tribe either. There was I think others as well, which I've put in the book, where the tribal chiefs become very, very happy and curious about it, and then end up coming to the faith through her, and through others as well, including her co-founder, who was a Italian Franciscan, Father Cornelio del Zotto, who was in fact a student of Father Joseph Ratzinger, who actually gave his blessing to the founding of the order back in 1975. So there's an interesting connection there as well. Of course, as a Bavarian, she had that connection with Father Ratzinger as well.
Edward, you alluded to it briefly, but there's exciting news at the bottom of your story, which is that you have written a book about Mother Maria, and which is coming out from Sophia Institute Press this fall. Can you tell us about it, and what are you hoping people get out of that book in learning about her story?
Yes, sure, Shannon. Well, the book comes out in October. It's really just a biography of her, but what I've done is go through all of these amazing stories, and there are many, many more stories in there, which I think readers will find inspirational, because it shows how when you have trust in God, there is no limits to what you can achieve. And one of her sayings was, if you're a friend with God, there are no limits to what you can achieve, and that she lived that so well. And that another one of her favorite sayings was, if you take God seriously, he'll take you seriously. And that was her life throughout. And she and there was just so many stories which I think just underline that total confidence in divine providence, and that's really what I wanted to get across. The 100% of the proceeds will go to the congregation. So if anyone's interested in this, then you'll be helping the congregation, which is doing such amazing work for many of the poor there, and it's such a strong witness of it.
Yeah, Edward, what are other ways that we can get to know the sister? Obviously, everyone we encourage to buy your book, but this is a story that is worth telling, and I know you have a piece coming out with the Register. But from the standpoint of the community, what do they need most right now?
Yes, well, they're trying to expand in terms of seminary education because they've got lots of vocations there, and the church, as you know, is flourishing in Africa, and especially there, and they need resources to help pay for the training of priests and so forth, but also with the hospital work and medical care. And they do a lot of sort of outreach in terms of spiritual outreach too. There's a Father Antonius Mamsari, who's the Superior General, has a kind of surgery every Saturday where he many people come from all over the region to come for spiritual help, especially where they come under attack from negative forces, of course. And so there's a lot of good pastoral work going on there, as well as humanitarian work, and of course there's still elements of these tribes that need bringing into the church too. So there's plenty to do.
Yeah,
plenty of
always.
work that they're doing.
And thank you for making us all much more aware of both their foundress and this community. So thank you.
You're welcome. Good to talk about it.
Well, that's it for Register Radio for this week. Remember, for more news, analysis, and commentary, check out the National Catholic Register online at ncregister.com. Thanks so much for joining us here on Register Radio, here on EWTN. Until next week, on behalf of our producer, Michael McCall, and Shannon Mullen, I'm Matthew Bunson. Please take care, and God bless.